So just recently I got back from my last competition, which was the Waikato Championships. I took Fattori and Casanova, and they both jumped really well up to 1.30 meters. Fattori jumped clear in her classes each day, except on the first day she had one rail in the 1.20 meters because I missed quite badly to the wall. But I had a little issue come up where I was struggling to get to some of the distances I was seeing. Every now and then throughout the course I'd see a ride for distance and I'd put my leg on and I couldn't quite get there. And I thought that either my eye was out a little bit or that Fattori was struggling with the distances, and my theory was because since she was jumping bigger fences, she was trying to be so careful over the jump, jumping so massive that she was landing a little bit steep. But because it was out of the ordinary, I decided to look further into it, because from my experience, when a horse's behaviour changes in any way, there's usually a reason behind it. And what I didn't want to do was ignore it and then in a show or two have her suddenly start stopping or losing confidence. So I had her seen by a chiropractor and she felt fantastic. She was great through her body, and so I was a little bit at a loss of what to do from there, because she wasn't tail swishing, she wasn't stopping or rushing, she was relaxed, she was loose, she was jumping fantastic, but I just had this feeling that something wasn't 100% because I'd never had issues with her striding before. She's always been able to move up, get the lines really easily. So what I thought was that I'd do a more thorough check over of her body. So I went and flexed all her joints, and when I flexed her front fetlocks, she pulled off them both, which for me is a really big red flag and something that I go straight to the vets for. So yesterday I took her to the vet and had her assessed. The vet had her trot up on concrete to assess her soundness, and then flexioned her limbs and found the same issue that I had, which she was pulling off both those front fetlocks. So we took her into the x-ray room and we x-rayed both the joints, and they were both great. So then we had to move on to scanning the tendons and ligaments, because usually, well, what I like to do is if they flex off a joint, I always go x-ray first, just to make sure that there's not remodeling in the joint, that something hasn't gone wrong, and then I go scanning in terms of looking at their tendons and ligaments. So we started scanning, and very quickly the vet picked up irregularities on her off fore, so on her right front limb, and she has diagnosed Fattori with a potential check ligament strain and also a suspensory strain. So very, very disappointing and quite unexpected, because she had no heat in her leg, she had absolutely no swelling, there were no behavioural issues that she was presenting with. The only change in her behaviour was that she wasn't quite making the distances, but still jumped clear in all her 1.30 meters classes. So for me it's a bit of a blow, because I've come back in this season enjoying it more than I ever have before. She feels incredible, and I was thinking that by the end of the season she was going to be able to step up and maybe jump the Lady Rider or jump her first small horse Grand Prix. And so now my season changes considerably, because she was the main horse. Casanova was just joining her for fun, but all the rest of mine are very young and very green. But in a way it's good because I can focus on the young horses. But the reason I want to share this with you is that so often we as riders get to a point with our horses where something starts to change or go wrong, and our first inclination is to push the horse through it. And sometimes we have that mentality that the horse is being naughty or misbehaving, and that with a bit of pressure they'll work through the issue, come out the other side, and it'll all be good to go. But from my own experience and from some really dumb mistakes in the past, I am now able to recognise that almost every single change in behaviour is related to something going on beneath the surface. And yes, we can push the horse through it, but what we either do is we either shut the horse down and have them learn to dissociate and become very depressed animals, or we end up with a horse who tries to communicate its discomfort in a louder way. So then we might get napping, rearing, bucking, kicking out, and in extreme cases the horse may really blow its fuse and display quite dangerous behaviours. And what then transpires is you have a horse that is now not safe to work with, or a horse that has lost its heart, that doesn't want to perform anymore because it doesn't enjoy it at all, and getting a horse's heart back is very, very difficult. So I am very fortunate from my past mistakes that I was able to pick up on Fattori's issue early, because I have an idea of the horse's baseline behaviour and can determine when something changes. And for some people, they may not have a baseline behaviour because their horse may always be mad and erratic and stressed. And then at that stage, it's really important to come back and be like, well, why are they still presenting these behaviours? Why is this horse stressed? Because if they're behaving in a stressed or anxious way, or something isn't 100%, it's usually because they are in discomfort in some way or another. And that can come from physical stress within the body, such as a strained tendon or ligament, a poor saddle fit, a broken splint bone, bad feet, etc. It can come from chemical stress, such as mineral imbalances or grass toxicity, and it can come from emotional stress, such as confusion, fatigue, and whatnot. And it is our responsibility as owners and as trainers to step back when a horse starts to present a new behaviour that is a little bit out of the blue and certainly not a positive behaviour, and to figure out what is causing the horse stress. Why is this horse suddenly woken up today and decided to nap by the gate, or to stop, or to not make the distances? For me, I'm at a stage now where my season is a little bit of a mess because Fattori needs several months out in the paddock and in rehab, but it's not as bad as it could have been. If I hadn't have picked up on that small behavioural change and I'd kept competing her, two things could have occurred. One is that at some stage the whole tendon could have blown, or two is that she might have started stopping, and so then I might have put more pressure on her. I might have started wearing spurs on her or telling her off, and then she might have kept jumping, but now she starts to lose her heart, and now she's starting to jack up by the gate. And I see that so often out on the circuit, where a horse is really trying hard to say, I'm not happy, something is wrong, and the owner doesn't pick up on it, usually out of ignorance, and keeps pushing the animal through it, and you end up just having this horse that just doesn't want to do it anymore. So for me, she's probably going to need till winter to rehab, but in the grand scheme of life, it's really not that big of a deal. She hasn't got a hole in the tendon, it's just a strain, so she should hopefully, fingers crossed, come back next season and be fine. So I'm very, very fortunate about that. It is very disappointing, but it is just the realities of working with animals, and actually anything in life, because lots of things can go great and then you just have massive things go wrong and disappointments and all the rest. But I'm just very, very glad that Fattori is okay, and I, on a silver lining side of it, get to focus on the young horses and get them going and have a little bit of an easygoing summer, which I actually have had for the last 3 years because of COVID, but it'll be good. And I think I'll look back at this moment in a few years and be like, well, I'm really glad that happened because this wouldn't have happened, or I wouldn't have learnt this lesson. So even though it is not great and it sucks sometimes, there's amazing lessons within it. But the main lesson that I want to share from this experience is that there is almost always a reason behind behavioural changes, and the earlier you can pick it up, the better. It's very rarely the horse being naughty, and most of the time it is because something is causing the horse stress inside.